Hey, what's up, Reefers? Today I want to give you a long overdue update on the 145-gallon tank. But first I want to talk about the Hanna Nitrate high range checker. If that's not something that you're interested in, go ahead and skip forward in the video to where I started talking about the 145-gallon tank. We got some exciting updates and the tank is looking good. Oh yeah, guys, check this out. 6 a.m. right now, Friday. I've been checking Amazon every day and look at this. The Hanna high range checker is finally stocked on Amazon directly from Hanna. And the reason I order Amazon because the other suppliers do not seem to have stocked it online yet. And of course Amazon, I got Prime, man, so I get it tomorrow. I'm really excited to try this because I have the low range ones and the process is really involved. I ended up using it maybe like 4 or 5 times. Accurate reading is great, but if I don't sit down and actually do it, and this one's supposed to be really easy, so we'll see.
The next morning.
Thanks to Amazon's super fast one-day shipping, I have in my hand the Hanna Nitrate high range checker. For full transparency, I have worked with Hanna instruments for years. In the past year and a half or so, I've really started making a point to try to use my own money to buy perishable, for example, like test kits and stuff like that, especially on new and unproven product. This is to avoid a possible situation where I receive a product for free in exchange for review and I have to make a critical review. That would just be awkward for all parties. Thankfully, up to this point, I have for the most part avoided that kind of situation, but just to make sure that I'm 100% free and clear and can say whatever is on my mind, for the most part, if it's something that's unproven and I'm not 100% sure about, I try to purchase it myself. But that is a bit of a tangent. Let's go ahead and take a look at this nitrate checker right here. All right, so from what I understand, this checker is supposed to be super simple as well, similar to the phosphate checker, basically just one reagent pack. It looks like it does not initially come with a lot of the nitrate tests, especially how often we'll do nitrate tests, but I hear that this test is really simple, unlike the low range nitrate checker. While that nitrate checker is nice to see the actual number, there are multiple steps. There's something to be said about keeping things simple because I feel like Hanna checkers, their selling point is that number one, you get accurate reading, and number two, is really simple to do. My favorite Hanna checker up to this point is the phosphate checker and the alkalinity checker. I think those two checkers, they knock it completely out of the park. The nitrate low range checker, while it's nice to get an accurate reading, it just takes too many steps. I ended up not using it as much as I thought I would. High range checker, I got it because I heard some great things about it, namely that it just one single step like the phosphate checker. Basically, you got one pack of your reagent, add it in, that's it. The only pain point is that you have to wait. With the nitrate test from other brands, you also have to wait for the chemical reaction to occur. So that is not just pertaining to the Hanna Nitrate high range checker. I'm not a huge fan of this screw in the checker, because it's like one of those smaller screws where you need a specialty screwdriver. It's no secret that I'm not a big fan of these like square pack reagents, but I do appreciate the fact that this time around, instead of like one long chain of those, they actually cut it for us. Taking hints from my Reef Sensei Telegram as well as Kevin at Hanna Instruments, I'll flick a couple times. I like to fold it in half, and this bit came from Kevin, and I'll cut it at the dotted line. I asked, like, how come they can't do, say, instant coffee kind of packaging? And the answer is that they actually use this kind of reagent packaging for other scientific tests as well. So it's not just the aquarium. So it doesn't make sense for them to change the packaging just to fit the vials. All right, I got my fancy pipettes here. It's I think it's like 30 bucks on Amazon. One of the best purchase. Oh, I actually have a really nice click this time, versus a lot of the other Hanna checker. I push it in, I'm like, oh, I'm not sure if it's if the lid is closed tightly. So that's a nice little improvement. Here's the part I absolutely hate. Sometimes the reagent powder would get stuck at the channel, and if I tap it too hard, everything just kind of fly out, and I've ruined a bag of reagents. Alexa, set alarm for 2 minutes. Alexa, set alarm for 7 minutes. All right, here we go. Okay, interesting. The reason I want to get a nitrate checker is because all my nitrate tests kind of give me something different. The ICP came back around 60 ppm. Mastertronic, it's giving me like 5 ppm nitrates. The NIOS is about 25. So this and the NIOS is probably the closest. For the Mastertronic, I know I am really behind in terms of maintenance. So that's totally my fault. I'm not super confident and it's reading at about like 5-ish. For the ICP, 60 just seemed ridiculously high, although it has been consistent to the the last ICP test as well. So that leaves the Niles, which gives me about like 25 the last time I checked, I think like 2 or 3 weeks ago. I can probably do a Niles test again, but I think like this falls in line with the Niles, so I would trust this. Accuracy of the reading aside, in terms of ease of use, this is in line with the phosphate checker. So to me, I feel like this Hanna handheld checker, it's a home run. If I have to pick 3 of my most favorite Hanna checker right now, it's going to be alkalinity, phosphate, and also the nitrate high range. The other ones, like the low range, is a little bit too many steps. I also bought the silicate one, which my tank was immediately out of range, so that did not help me too much in terms of just like water testing. I think like these 3 are the trinity for Hanna checker right now. Now it seems bold claim, seeing how I've only used this once, but it is a pretty straightforward process. All right, so that's my first impression of the Hanna high range nitrate checker. Easy to use. In terms of accuracy, it's hard for me to say exactly, but in my case, at least it matches up with the Niles, and Hanna has been known to have some good test results per like aquarium test kits. So if you keep your reef tank with higher than 5 ppm nitrate, I think this may be a nice kit to look into. Hope this has been helpful. If you're interested in the test kit or the pipette, I'll have the Amazon link in the video description below, especially if you're Prime, you get 1-day shipping, and it'll help the channel a little bit because I get a little bit of commission if you buy from the link. All right, on to the video. Hey, what's up, Reefers? I think it has been close to 3 weeks since we've last talked about this tank. Last week was the simple mangrove soft coral macroalgae tank, and the week before was Reefpalooza, and the week before that I was just too busy getting ready to go to Reefpalooza. So it has been a hot minute. This tank has been quietly growing. It has been growing really well. The alkalinity has been really stable thanks to the Alkatronic. The nutrient I have been keeping an eye out on thanks to the Mastertronic, as well as the ICP test that I've been doing along with the Moon Reef Shiners method. So everything has been kind of on the ups and ups, and it shows in the coral growth. But it's not all sunshine and unicorn in this particular update. I did have some loss, but for the most part, it is good. For the good first, let's just go in and take a look at some of these coral that I have going in this tank, and we're gonna first take a look at the GSP. The GSP has absolutely exploded in growth. This up here is the branching GSP that Lynn hooked me up with. Down here is the Dave's Nano Tank GSP. They look kind of similar, but this type actually, well, it's kind of hard to see right now, but you see that it actually form branches out in the water column and start branching outward. So it's kind of unique. I've seen them in the Ecotech Marines tank. They got some branching GSP in one of their tank, which was pretty awesome. This, like I mentioned, is from Dave's Nano Tank. The interesting things about this GSP is that it does not have that bright white center. I'll show you an example. If we come back to the side here, these are the GSP that I had in the 17-gallon frogfish tank in the past. I used this to line the bottom. Now this one in particular, you'll see that there's a white centered, so it does not work as well as like in order to make a grass field, because you get that little break right there in the middle. If I were to do a grass field again, I would probably use the branching type or the Dave Nano Tank type. I feel like this will work so much better as grass field. And the reason I'm focusing so much on green star polyp is because I am debating what to do for the back wall. I've seen comments, people saying that you should scrape your back wall. The black color is gonna make the coral pop a lot more. And I 100% agree with all of you guys' suggestions. I thought about it, I tried it, but the Caroline algae is on so thick that I was just using a plastic card to try to scrape them. It's just simply not happening. I thought about using a razor blade, but then I was afraid that because back here it's actually a black acrylic panel, I was really afraid that the razor blade is gonna scorch the acrylic. So I ended up just kind of leaving it, okay, I'll figure something else out. So alternatively, I thought about maybe growing some kind of corals on the back wall. And I think GSP is one of the natural selection because it grows fast and then it can tolerate a wide range of parameters. So I thought about GSP, and that's why I kind of look at what type of GSP I have and figured, do I want to do it? The only downside of that is, of course, it's kind of invasive, meaning that if I grow other corals that's close to the back wall, the GSP may climb over it and take over. And also the GSP, they're really bright. I think it may steal the thunder from any of the corals that's kind of like right in front of the GSP. So that's kind of like an issue as well. I am toying with the idea of possibly growing maybe some SPS, branching SPS from the back wall instead of using green star polyp. Case in point, in the back there I have the Walt Disney frag right there. And also there's a new frag that I picked up that is called the Master Yoda, I believe. The seller said that that particular SPS, while it was a small frag, frag, like coralites or whatever you call it, it looks really nice and interesting. But after it has grown, the color's not as exciting. So that's an interesting thing, and I appreciate the seller's honesty. But I have that frag rack right there because I want the corals to get used to that environment in case I do want to start growing SPS right from the back wall. Most likely I'll probably get maybe like a shaved piece of a reef rock, or they're like magnetic frag mounts that looks like rock. I'll use those instead. But for now, that frag rack is going to serve a purpose of holding those frags there so they can get used to the water current as well as the light intensity while I figure out my next move in terms of addressing the back wall, because if you look here, it is getting a little messy. Next thing I really want to address is the Acan Lord on Micromussa, as they have done the name change. This rainbow colony down here is doing beautiful. In fact, it's doing so well that it started growing polyps towards the front of the rock. This used to be bare, and you can see it has already put out a few heads and started moving its way downwards, which is kind of interesting because like the light, it's right over it. I don't really have any light pointing from like the foreground towards colony. So the fact that it's actually growing away from the light, I thought that's kind of interesting. The colony above it, this guy right here, it wasn't doing too well before. I suspected it was a combination of too much light as well as the Malamilla blenny that always like to perch around the area. I noticed that whenever the blenny is around, this guy just kind of shrink up and just not enjoying life. Sure enough, ever since the Malamilla blenny had left the tank, this colony is just doing a lot better. And if you guys remembered, this particular radion is actually unlinked from these two. So these two is one set and this one is separate. Right now, these two radions are pushing, I've been stepping up the intensity. Right now, I think it's like 52% intensity. And this one is only at 35%. I'm slowly ramping it up to see at which point these Acan just have had enough. I think at some points, I may actually have to chip off this entire colony and put something else here that enjoys higher light, because I really don't want one single coral colony here to be the limiting factor to the amount of light I can push down to this section of the tank. But for now, this portion of the tank consists mostly of the lower light loving coral versus like this side is the more higher light loving corals. While we're here, let's talk about the Euphyllias as well. This particular hammer coral is my pride and joy of this tank at the moment. Just look at the tip of each tentacle. I have not seen something like this. It's just funky looking and the color is really nice. In fact, the color you see in the video, it matches my eyes pretty closely. It's like a nice lime green, lime yellow kind of deal. So it's really beautiful. And what I'm really happy about is that it started out with maybe 4.5 heads. Right now we're pushing 7.5 heads. So it definitely has grown. Can't wait till I can start fragging and sharing this guy. Above it, we have a bicolor hammer that I got from Top Shelf Aquatic, I think. It has been holding steady. Did not really grow for me, even though the polyp does seems to be expanding a little bit more now compared to when I first got it. So that's good news, but I'm still patiently waiting for it to spread. And back there, enjoying life, is my colony of splattered hammer. It was kind of like on and off for a while, but for the last 2 months or so, it's really met its stride. And once I started dosing the reef moonshine methods and kind of got all the trace elements in line, it really started expanding and happy and started taking off. To be honest, I'm not 100% sure what was bothering the Euphyllias in this tank before, but whatever it is, problem is gone, and right now all the Euphyllia is just happy and kind of expanded in this tank. Now let me swing over here to show you the other Euphyllias as well. This single polyp right here, Frogspawn, has always done really well in this spot, and seeing how well it does, I actually moved the rest of the colony that this broke off of from back there, which it was not too happy about a month ago. And sure enough, the polyps started opening up. So in this particular colony case, the issue was not so much the trace elements and whatnot, but it's more like the light and the flow, because once again, these guys are all in the same water, so water parameters should be the same. So it's more the flow and the light that was bothering this colony. But the good thing is that it looks like we found the perfect spot for these guys, and the colony is making a really nice comeback. And in terms of actual true Euphyllias, because all those other guys has been reclassified, the New York Knicks torch is doing us proud. It started out as one fat head from Joker Corals, but now it is actually 3 heads. It's like 2 heads, and then one of them is like almost done splitting. So it's looking fantastic. It's really happy. I was talking to Joker Corals before, and they said that the higher light you put this coral under, the brighter it's gonna get for you. So just like for the SPS, I've been slowly ramping up the light for these Radiant XL15s, and I do see that I'm starting to get more and more of those gold shimmer coming back in, so that is excellent. All right, next up, let's talk about the Gonipora Garden. I'm really happy to report that a lot of these Gonis, well, on the brink of death, maybe like earlier this year, have all made a fantastic comeback. We're starting off this hot pink, I believe is ORA, Gonipora. It was pretty much all bleach out, and then about 3 months ago, it started coming back around, and now the tentacle's always out, even that tiny frag up front. To the right, I think that is the Date Night, also from Joker Corals. It also regained its color. It was bleach white, completely closed for a couple months. And I just gotta say, like, these Gonis just, they're really patient and they just kind of hang in there even though they're all kind of bleached up. Case in point, you see this really pale bleach out one, Gonipora. This one came from Lynn. It used to be really dark pink, and I went through the whole dino nutrient issue and just totally bleach out. I thought it was a goner, but if I show you the other side, you see that the color started coming back in, tentacles started extending, and it's looking great. Behind there, we got a teal and green color Gonipora. I don't think I got the flow down properly for that coral, because when it was over here, the tentacle was a lot longer, so I think it's probably not a big fan of the current flow situation. But I'm gonna observe it for a couple more days before I make any change, because I want to see if it can adapt to this higher flow area. And to the right, we got this Rainbow Goni that I also got from Joker Corals. It's looking fantastic. I feel like it almost maybe put on 1/3 the size since I've gotten it, so it's really happy. And that Goni has just been one that has just done well in this tank, so I'm really happy to report that. I really want to talk about Zoas and the oddball corals and clams, but let's talk about the SPS first, because I am proud. The two SPS I'm most proud of at the moment are these two guys right here. I believe they're just two types of Miyagi torts. Not something crazy, but I really appreciate the beauty and appreciate the fact that they've been hanging on in this tank for the longest time. These are some of the earliest SPS I've added to this tank from Lynn, and they immediately browned out in my tank as expected. But ever since I started doing the Reef Moonshiner method, I joke you not, it started coloring back up. It actually glows in person. You can kind of see the coloration, but it's intense in person. And what got me super excited is that recently from the encrusted base, they started putting out all these shoots into the, is it coral light? What's the proper term? Sorry, I'm still really new towards SPS. But they started putting out all these crazy shoots shooting upwards, and they just grew really fast. One interesting thing is that the one on the right, it seems to grow outwards and then downwards, versus the other ones kind of grow outwards and then upwards, which I thought SPS would do. So this is an interesting situation right here. It would be awesome if the one on the right start tabling, but of course I'm not sure if the growth pattern of this particular SPS would grow in that formation. To the left of these OG SPS in my tank, we got some new addition. Some of them came from Lynn, like you see in the past, and some of them come from Joker Corals as well as Top Shelf Aquatics. Now, really sadly, the Organ Torts in the middle of the frame, the purple one, it used to be intense blue and purple. It lost its color. It kind of browned out a little bit. I'm guessing it's my high nitrate as well as the light intensity is not quite there. But that seems to be a trend for a lot of the SPS or coral in general that enter this tank. But after a couple months, usually they regain the coloration. So I am hopeful. And in the back, like we saw before, we have the Walt Disney frag as well as the Master Yoda. I'm really excited to see how they turn out. One really exciting thing that I see personally is that these two SPS frags that I fragged for Telegram, my Reef Sensei, actually started encrusting over the super glue and actually grew a little bit. So this is really exciting to see. Can't wait for Mr. Telegram to come pick them up, and then I'll want to see how they evolve in his tank, because his tank grow corals and his tank color up corals like no other. While we're here on this side of the tank, this side of the tank is actually one of the views that I really enjoy, just looking lengthwise down the tank. Because if you just look at the right angle, it looks almost like the corals up front is framing the main rock structure in the back. It just looks beautiful and breathtaking. Remember before, like a year ago, it was pretty much all bare rocks? Look at how the Zoas have grown onto the rock, and we're starting to run out of space on the Zoa rock, which is absolutely awesome. Well, since we're talking about Zoas, let's head on over there, huh? So here is the Zoa Garden. We see certain things like zinnias growing, as well as I made the mistake of putting a chalice right there. And that chalice is just absolutely going gangbuster right now and growing over all the other zoas. And same deal here. We got some zoas here. These are the yellow brick road zoas growing among the I think it's called Cyphestries. And who would have known that Cyphestries actually outgrow the zoas? If you look right here in the middle of the frame, you see that the stalk of one of these zoas actually got wrapped around by the Cyphestries. I hope I'm pronouncing it right. And they're just having a serious turf war. In fact, in front of that single polyp, there's another polyp that got completely surrounded by the Cyphestries. I may just let them duke it out, although I do need to once again address these zinnias right here. If you look back, I think like 3 or 4 videos, I took this whole piece of rock out of the tank and started plucking off the zinnias. And obviously I did not do a clean enough job, like I mentioned. I need to do it again. But what I want to draw your attention to, all those spots right here used to be completely bare. Just in the span of a month and a half, 2 months, these zoas had totally recolonized the rock. And we're once again back to square one. This looked like how I first got this rock. We got some zinnia growing here and there, so I think the previous owner did try to pull the zinnias and did not do a clean job like I did. The other thing I need to address here are these Superman mushrooms. As awesome as they look, they are starting to sting the Cyphestries. I'm starting to get bare spots right here. These used to be all Cyphestries. So I think what I will do is the next time I pull this whole rock out, I may just scrape off all these mushrooms. I'm still kind of on the fence about it because I feel like one of the high-fin goby lives here now. It's kind of cool to got like mushroom right here, kind of like highlighting the burrow versus having just like a gaping black hole. But this mushroom just spread a little bit too fast. In fact, look at this. We got one right here, and we got another one right there. See, I even know where the loose mushrooms are. That's how often I look at the tank. So I think they're slightly too invasive for my taste. Oh, look, there's a harlequin shrimp. I added 2 harlequin shrimp here thanks to Daniel from New York. Recently, I've only seen one, so hopefully the other one is doing well. Every day or so, I try to pluck some of those Escherichia starfish off the glass and feed it to him to make sure he's able to catch stuff. Seems like he's okay. There's actually a lake of the chocolate chip starfish in the back that I kind of chop up and fed him. But this guy has not been eating that lake at all, so I'm not sure what's going on over there. But I just hope that this guy will do well, as well as the other one that is missing action at the moment. All right, sorry for the tangent. Back to the Zoa Garden. Right now, my favorite zoas in my possession probably are these salted agave, the ones up front here. These came from Bahamallama, so just got a really nice metallic blue look and red look. And slightly to the left, I have those little shops of horror. Those came from Lynn, and those two are probably my favorite Zoas and Pellies at this moment. At some point in the near future, I really want to do a Zoa and Pelly specific video because there are some new stuff and new tricks and tips that I learned pretty recently this year. And this video is only going to be like an overall tank update first to catch everyone up to speed. So that'll be coming, I think. I'm pretty sure I'll do it. And we got some new ones that's ready to be added to the Zoa rock or start a new rock. Same thing with that one that you may have spied earlier in this video. Those 2 clams came from Clammania and they are doing amazingly well. I actually had a Maxima clam sitting over here as well, but unfortunately that one did not make it. It's kind of like a weird case because the clam was shut tight. It got eaten from the bottom in, if that makes any sense. Upon closer inspection, I noticed a really nice size and shiny looking bumblebee snail sitting right by the rock. I did not pay any attention, but then I thought, So I went online, did a search. Sure enough, when there's not enough food in the tank, bumblebee snails may start eating your snails and your clam. So with that in mind, I pulled out all my bumblebee snails and kind of banished them to the refugium where they're still alive. I did not flush them. They're still alive. I feel like they serve a purpose of eating verminous snails, but maybe not at the moment because I do have clam in this tank that I would love to keep. Before I really like kind of put a bad name on bumblebee snails, please do your research first. This is what I found based on anecdotes and what people are saying. So please do your own research before you make a decision on what you want to do with your bumblebee snails. But in my particular case, because I want to play safe with all the clams, and that particular Maxima clam, it was not sitting in that little rock with a little crevice. It's actually attached to its side. So its bottom foot is kind of exposed. So I can see how a bumblebee snail or any other potential pest that want to go after the clam could get to the underside of the clam and prey on it. So unfortunately, that baby Maxima clam was lost. I'm really sad about it because that Maxima clam was doing really well. If you look on my Instagram page, it's opened up fully. It looks really happy for the 2 weeks, and then overnight, it's gone. Once again, if the clam dies naturally, at least in my experience, they just kind of like loose, and there's always a gap on the clam shell. Versus this one, it was just shut tight. But it was shut for like a day and a half. I was like, what's going on? I started looking a little bit, and I was like, oh no. When you look from the underside, you see the underneath it, the foot is already empty. You can kind of see inside the clam. This was totally my fault for not doing my research before adding clams to this tank. I wonder if the bumblebee snails also may have an impact on my clam issues. Happier news, right there we got the Space Invader Pectinia frag that I took maybe like a month and a half ago. It's doing fantastic, so well that I'm considering moving the whole Space Invader Pectinia back into this tank. It's a nice chunk now, although it's doing really nice in the mangrove, but it's kind of always getting blocked by the mangrove roots as well as the macroalgae. So I wonder if I want to bring it back in here just so that we can see it a little bit easier. I'm not sure, but either way, we do have that frag. If I do end up moving the mini colony back here, I'm gonna move this frag into the mangrove tank, so we always have eggs in different baskets. And to the left, we see the Rainbow Monty. I'm not even sure what kind of Monty right there, but it's encrusting type and it has been exploding in growth as well as coloration. It used to be that little mount. You see that little mount right there? That's coral. And just in the past, maybe like 2 or 3 months, it just found its stride, started encrusting over the entire plug, and it started growing onto the sand bed. I'm left with the decision on what to do with this. Maybe I'll just move this guy onto the back wall and just have it start a little Monty corner. That would be kind of cool, right? I don't know what this Harlequin shrimp is doing, man. It's kind of like riding that snail, but whatever makes you happy, it's cool. And right behind the Harlequin shrimp, we got the OG bounce mushroom from the very generous Daniel from New York. So I picked this guy up from Reefer, I think it's like 2 weeks ago now. And Daniel was like, yeah, you lost the OG frag that I got you last time, but don't worry, I got another one for you. This one's a little bit larger. I'm like, okay. So I was expecting like maybe like a dime size one. This guy came in, it's like silver dollar sign. I'm like, what? And then Daniel was like, no, don't worry, it's gonna get even bigger. I'm like, what are you talking about? And sure enough, after 2 weeks, this guy, chunky. And Daniel said that he appreciates food, is like a hungry little piggy, and sure enough, I would mix up my Reefer in a really paste-like format, shut off all the flow, squirt a little bit, and it'll kind of close up on itself and just inhale the Reefer. So the OG bounce is doing beautiful, and it is one of the brightest coral in this tank, right alongside of the green star polyp, ironically. The most expensive and the most affordable. In terms of like bounce mushroom and mushrooms, I got all those other guys going on in there. We got a sun kiss from Daniel in Virginia, and also we got those awesome looking Rhodectus that is still unnamed yet up front. That's the orange one with the green center, and I really like those Rhodectus. I'm really surprised that nobody really named them yet, and they're not even that sought after. If I see more of those, I would love to grab them because they're really slow growers. And up front we got some other kind of mushrooms that I got from, I believe, Top Shelf Aquatic. It has split once, so I got 2 polyps now. And on the left side we got this strange green bounce mushroom that me, Ben, Daniel, like Jim, we started jokingly calling it the Oscar bounce because it's kind of like not pretty version of a bounce mushroom. Oscar being the lives in dumpsters, kind of like a dumpster bounce. But it's been doing well. It's doing well. While it does not have awesome coloration, and more than made up for it in its size as well as its texture. I thought it looks awesome too. So in terms of corals, we also got the Bahamallama weeping willow. It was kind of like stagnant in the mangrove tank for whatever reason, just not that happy there. It did not die, it's just not happy. So I moved it down to the 135 gallon tank maybe 2 months ago. And it has grown, it's doubled in size, tentacles always out, it is happy in this tank, so I'm really happy to see it. I'm hoping that maybe in a couple months I can start pulling frags from it and we can spread the wealth locally. Because this coral is one that is worth spreading around. This is a really, really beautiful soft coral. Same as this, guys. We got some awesome leather right here, as well as right here. I really have a soft spot for like leather corals. But unfortunately, with all these leather coral in here, I gotta be careful, and I make it a point to make sure I run some carbon in case they have like chemical warfare between like leather, zoas, gorgonian also. So I got all these things going on. I want to make sure I always have like fresh carbon running in case there's any chemical warfare that happens. Fish are doing fantastic. They're fat, happy, follow me everywhere because they think I'm feeding. And just look at the size of this hippo tank. Every time I look at him, he's larger. He's pushing 4 inches now. Oh man, They grow up so fast, right? There are a lot of things that I want to cover in this video, but in this particular video, I just want to get you guys up to speed overall in how the tank is doing right now. Starting next video, we'll break it down into really interesting topics. A lot of things happen, a lot of things I learned, and there's some interesting products I really want to share with you guys. It just made me chuckle. You may know what it is already. And there are some really nice surprises as well that I cannot wait to share with y'all. So if you don't mind, drop me one of these guys, leave in the comments of what is your favorite coral in this tank right now, and I'll see you guys next Sunday at 12:30 p.m. Shop. Alright, so I just added some Benepets to the tank, and oh, there he is. You see him?